A very good morning from the Oatridge campus of Scotland's Rural College, and a warm welcome to this live event for our Wildlife and Conservation Management courses. Thank you all for joining us today. My name's Graham West and I'm the Marketing and Student Recruitment Officer here on campus. The format for today will be as follows, but first a few quick housekeeping notes. We can't hear you, but hopefully you can hear us. Please do use the Q&A bar on the right-hand side to ask any questions. But note there's a short delay between us talking and you hearing, so please bear that in mind. The event is being recorded and I'll share a link to allow you to view it in a day or so, so you can view it at a later date and maybe ask any further questions that might arise. I'll shortly introduce my colleague Lorna Oldershaw, who's one of our lecturers in this subject area, and Lorna will take us through a presentation on the various courses available, which I hope will give you a flavour of how our academic team aim to provide the very highest quality of structured learning from our campus here at Oatridge. Our teaching teams on campus are constantly adapting and developing new ways to deliver quality learning for our students, using a blended approach which, depending on the subject, will combine online, classroom and practical work. After the presentation, we'll then be happy to review and address any questions you may have. So again, please do use the Q&A bar. So without any further ado, I'll introduce you to Lorna, who will be able to take you through the presentation.
Thanks very much, Graham. So as I mentioned, my name's Lorna and I'm one of the lecturers from the Countryside and Conservation Department. I teach across all levels, so no matter which course that you're interested in today, the chances are you will meet me. So I'm just going to take you through the presentation to introduce the different courses that we've got and the study tours that we do. Okay, so as I said, it's the Countryside and Conservation Department that we're in. There are a range of courses that we have from Access Courses, which is our Certificate Land-Based Studies course. We have an NC in Countryside Management, so you can start off in the Certificate Land-Based Studies, move up to NC in Countryside Management. You can then continue your studies with a HNC in Wildlife and Conservation Management, and then follow that up with a HND in Wildlife and Conservation Management. And you can apply to enter the courses at any one of these levels, so you don't have to follow through all four. For instance, you can come in straight at the HNC in Wildlife and Conservation Management if that's what interests you. We also have degree, masters and PDA programmes. The HNC HND feeds into year 3 of the degree and the MSc and PDA, and these are more focused around our Edinburgh campus. Okay, so these are just some of the activities that students have taken part in the previous courses. It's everything from practical skills, could be path work, could be fence construction, these types of things. Could be getting more involved in the sort of visitor management and interpretation, active recreation, and of course the wildlife conservation part. When we start off with the Certificate Land-Based Studies, so as I say, this is a kind of access course. It's for the full academic year. It's 3 days per week, so you would be on campus on a Monday, a Thursday and a Friday from 9 until 4:45. Every course runs on 3 10-week blocks with a review week at the end of those 10 weeks. So it's 11 weeks in total and 33 weeks over the year, plus your holidays during kind of Easter and Christmas time. The Certificate Land-Based Studies course includes a few topics. So the first one being estate maintenance. So you can see here some students have been involved in fence construction, dry stain dike walling, path work. Sometimes these activities are on the campus and sometimes you'll go out onto various sites to carry these out, learning the skills and developing your own experience along the way. Another part of the Certificate Land-Based course is soft landscaping. So this is akin to sort of horticulture type things where you'll do some planting, some potting on, and looking at kind of lawns and lawn care and those kinds of topics. Then we've got some crop production, again working closely with the horticulture department. You might grow plants, you might grow vegetables, you might bring them on, put them out. We've got allotments on the campus and you grow them out throughout the year. A sort of list of other types of things that you'll study. So you can see here there's things like assisting with an event and enterprise activity. So we kind of work these two units together and you will build things within your kind of woodworking and then set up a shop within the campus and sell them to students and staff. We also get you out working on your species identification, looking at rural environments and the types of plants and animals that you might get there, along with other things such as using small powered machinery and your core skills such as IT and numeracy. Next level up from this is your NC and countryside management. As I say, you can enter any course at any level, or you can start from the bottom and work your way up. Similar types of courses, so the NC Countryside Management is very much a practical course, looking at the skills and knowledge for what's involved to get into the industry. So it might be that you are interested in a ranger job or an estate maintenance job. So your NC Countryside Management is going to give you those types of skills. You'll see here a list of all the different types of modules that are involved in it. It's quite a wide variety to give you a broad range of skills. So it could be anything from, again, working on your ID skills, looking at biodiversity conservation, potentially looking towards recreation outdoors and kind of legal access, then doing a bit of more practical things, so your countryside woodwork and practical conservation, going out to sites, doing a bit of habitat management work. And lots of different skills that you might use for a range of jobs that are available in the sector. So this just gives you a broad understanding of the various elements within the kind of countryside management sector. For all the courses, we try and run a study tour. This year, the study tours are, there's one study tour going to South Africa. And for the NC course, this is fully funded, but you would need to provide a £500 deposit, which you would then get back. So for NC, it's kind of full funded, unless you're doing any additional activities. Last year was the first year we ran it. It was the students really enjoyed it. Some students are returning who have moved up this year. Lots of things to experience when you're out there. I'll just bring up some different pictures here. So this is some of last year's NC students out in Africa. And it's all to do with conservation in that area, getting involved in the activities. And you're out there for kind of about 3 weeks. Again, lots of happy smiling faces of students out experiencing different things within South Africa. Again, it's a good opportunity within this course to go out and see conservation in a different country and see how they carry out their habitat management and species protection. I like to share lots of pictures from Africa. Okay, and then that takes us on to the HNC in Wildlife and Conservation Management. So this is the equivalent to year 1 of a degree. You can sign up to just do the HNC, you can sign up to HND, or you can then progress beyond. And again, this is something that you could look at doing the NC to gain your practical skills and then move up to the HNC or apply directly in. And this is building on those skills again. You're on campus on a Monday and a Tuesday and a Wednesday. It's classed as a full-time course, so you are expected to be able to do your own research out with that time to help you with your assessments and your learning. You'll see here it's quite a range of modules that you do. It's sort of in different categories. So we've got the types of ecology, species identification, survey techniques. Then we've got the sort of people management side of things, so interpretation, visitor management techniques, leadership of countryside activities, rural land use, that type of thing. And then we've got things like geology, biodiversity conservation, and your key skills like IT. Each of the HNC, HND have got what we call a graded unit. So this is a project that you would carry out over the year. And it just kind of builds your skills of self-research and looking into a topic, producing a report, and kind of just building up your skills in case you're wanting to move on to the next year. We also have the Oatridge Ranger Service, which the students completely manage on their own. It's a kind of separate entity to the course itself, and each year the HNC, HND students take on the role of managing this organisation, and it involves all manner of activities to help you build your skills and your contacts within the sector. So for instance, this week they're out doing some orchard maintenance. Sometimes they can be out doing bat surveys. Sometimes they can be out doing habitat management work on peatlands. So it's a wide range of activities that the HNC, HND students organise, and it gives you, just as I say, that opportunity to keep using your skills and also to meet people. So quite often they work with organisations such as Forestry and Land Scotland, Nature Scot, Frog Life, Plant Life, Bat Conservation Trust, so all these different organisations that you might have heard of before if you've been looking into this sort of sector area. They try and make these connections with, and gives you the chance to have that networking. There's just some kind of pictures of what the Oatridge Ranger team have been out doing. So things like creating brash banking within rivers to provide habitat and prevent erosion, doing a bit of interpretation and identification, and some habitat management work. So you can see there it's quite a broad range of skills that you then get to put into practice as part of the Ranger Service. For the HNCs and the HNDs, there is the opportunity to go to South Africa. We also try and run a study tour to the Isle of Rum, which is a small island just off the west coast. You get a ferry over, you get off the ferry, and that's pretty much where the roads stop on the island. So it's very much a rugged and remote island. The management on it is by Nature Scot. You might, if you have ever watched Autumn Watch and you see the deer rut, this is the island that takes place. So you'll learn all about the kind of the ongoing deer study that's taking place within the Isle of Rum. You'll do some otter surveying. You might look at, there's a bird on the hills called the Manx shearwater. You might get involved with them. So there's lots of things that take place within the study tour. It's a real gem of an island, and as I say, it's no roads in the island, so you're there, you walk about, you experience what the island has to offer, and yet take part in the management while you're there. And these are just some pictures from some previous trips to the Isle of Rum. Okay, and we use these kind of trips as well to help you with your coursework. So again, you put into practice the skills and knowledge that you've been learning throughout the year, carry out different types of surveys, maybe do some landscape assessment and things like that. It doesn't always have these lovely blue skies and views, but it is a magical place to go and visit. And there might be some after work activities as well in the only pub on the island, which is a small shed next to the ferry port. Okay, and that takes us on to the HND Wildlife Conservation Management. So this is kind of year 2. So you would do HNC first and then HND. And this is sort of building on the modules from the previous year and introducing some new subjects you've not done before. So things like habitat management, ecological surveying, data collection handling, these are all building on the skills from the previous year. But then we introduce things like tourism and marine environments, freshwater environments, subjects that we can really focus in on these different types. So you'll have had an introduction the year before, but it's then really kind of focusing in these different types of environments. Also getting more involved with interpretation and education for sustainability. The HND runs Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, again full-time course, so 3 full days on college, and then other days that you're expected to kind of do your own learning and research. There's also 2 graded units for the HND, but again it's a project, so you'll be given a you'll be taken to a site, given a scenario, and then you will build your project around it. So very much a self-led project that you'll do, which students enjoy, kind of leading the project themselves and doing their research and whatever. So yeah, so 3 graded units in total for the 2 years. And the past few years, the HND students, again, you have the opportunity to go to South Africa, but we also try and run a study tour to Romania. And again, this is about putting your skills in, but experiencing what it's like to do sort of conservation in a different kind of area, sort of mountainous area. And it's very much using kind of natural skills for conservation management. So you can see there, one of the students has been scything, and kind of very much different weather from Scotland, a lot warmer over in Romania. But it's a good opportunity to see how conservation happens in other countries, and where there are similarities and differences, and learn some other new skills, practical skills. Just a couple more pictures from Romania. Oh, and that is us at the end of the presentation. So if there are any questions, please do use the Q&A chat box, and I will pass over to you, Graham.
Thank you very much, Lorna. Really interesting, and some new bits that I wasn't aware of, such as the trip to Kruger Park. That sounds absolutely brilliant. I was wondering whether that means you're not going to do some of the other trips you've done, but it looks like you're doing these in addition to the trip to Mull. And I think, do the NCs do a trip up to Aviemore, or is that one still going?
So I think for the NCs, it'll be the South Africa trip.
Brilliant.
For them. Yep. So try and get as many as possible NCs to South Africa.
That sounds absolutely great. Okay, so let's get some questions done. I've had a number of questions through from some of the people who'd already pre-registered, so I'll just run through some of these for you, Lorna, if you don't mind. This one is from Nicola, who's asking what kind of preparatory work or voluntary placements would be useful to do prior to joining the NC course. Okay,
good. So what I would say is there's lots and lots of volunteering out there. Within the conservation sector, volunteering is an excellent way to build your skills and to make connections within the organisation, the sector. What I would say though is that because there is so much volunteering out there, think about what you enjoy most and maybe start there. Okay, so good organisations that you could try and volunteer for would be people like the Scottish Wildlife Trust. Okay, so if you can find a local reserve to you, or you could check their website and see what kind of volunteering they've got. So Scottish Wildlife Trust. The RSPB, if you're interested in birds, is a good one to go to. Again, if you go onto their website, they usually have volunteer opportunities, a bit like they would advertise a job, but they advertise volunteering. The RSPB are not just birds, so that's their sort of main focus, but they do have some areas where you get more involved in kind of other animals, mammals, that type of thing. So do check out the RSPB website as well. If you've got any sort of local group to you, any kind of conservation group nearby, that might be an option to check. Or if you've got a country park, I know a lot of the country parks around about the campus take on volunteers. So if you've got any kind of country park nearby, that would be a good place to kind of ask as well. So it really depends on kind of what you're interested in, but anything that's either practical sort of habitat management work, so conservation volunteers, TCV, they do a bit more practical habitat stuff. So you might go out and do cutting back rhododendron or something like that. They're kind of practical. RSPB would be birds. Scottish Wildlife Trust would be a kind of range of things. They've got visitor centres and things like that. And just really depending where you're based. If you're near something like a national park, they always have good volunteer programmes where you can sign up, and you can either be a volunteer ranger, which requires commitment, maybe 1 or 2 days per month, or you can just sign up for sort of practical conservation habitat tasks. So hopefully that gives you a range of organisations that you could maybe look at to begin with. but certainly I'm happy to, if you want to email in to Graham kind of where your interests are, and I can narrow it down a wee bit better, or even where you're coming from, where you live, and I can give you an idea within the different areas: West Lothian, Falkirk, Stirling, somewhere else.
Brilliant. That's a very full answer, Lorna. Thank you for that. Here's one from Nikki that's just come in. I'm assuming, Nikki, you mean to go straight on to apply for the HNC. Question, Lorna, is from Nikki. Is it okay to go onto the HNC if you don't have the practical experience that the NC gives?
Okay, so what I would say is absolutely yes. You can start off right at the HNC. There is a bit more theory involved in HNC, so you'll spend a bit more time in the classroom. The assessments for that are a bit more wordy, so you might have a 1,500, 2,000 word report, or you might have 3 different assessments, which are a report, a presentation, and something else. So if you feel like you want to really gain a solid grounding in terms of the practical experience, then NC is a good way to go, but you don't have to start there. You can absolutely apply for the HNC and move on from there. But just students that do come from NC all the way up usually say that they are glad they've done it that way, just because you get so much practical within the NC. I would say it's probably 70% at least practical in the NC, whereas the HNC is probably about 50%, maybe 40-50% practical, and the rest of it's sort of classroom and theory based. And then again, the HND is even more kind of theory type stuff.
Sure. Okay, thank you for that one. This is a question from Andrew, which comes up every time we do one of these events. Is clothing and footwear provided for the practical elements of the courses?
Okay, so if you join us on one of the access courses, so if you join us in the certificate land-based studies course or the NC course, then there is PPE, some PPE provided, such as boots or waterproofs, that type of thing. But if you're joining us on the HNC, HND, then it would be up to you to provide certainly waterproofs and like kind of sturdy walking boots, that type of thing. If you needed specialist equipment for using any kind of machinery and stuff, then we would provide that type of thing. So like face masks and safety glasses and stuff like that, we provide those kinds of things. But in terms of boots, waterproofs and stuff, then HNC, HND, you'd be providing your own. But that's not to say we can't maybe help out if need be.
So this one is from Shona, and it kind of expands a little on what you were saying about the Orcs team, the Oatridge. Always need to get this out. Oatridge Countryside and Ranger Stewards. Is that right?
Oatridge Rangers and Countryside
Stewards, yes.
Yeah.
Shauna's asking about links to Ranger services or links to charities such as you've mentioned, people like NTS, Nature Scottish Wildlife Trust. There are others, RSPB, these kind of things. But I just wanted to mention, because I've been not involved, but I've been to see some of the work that the Orcs do, and it really is terrific. The fact that it's a student-led organisation, and the lecturing team kind of let them get on with it because it's now been established for 3-4 years, and they really do such a terrific amount of work. I mean, I've been out to places like Blawhorn Moss outside Armadale, which is a peat bog, and it's all about the carbon sink and keeping the carbon in the ground. And the students go out there and, I guess, give their labour up to help, in this case, Nature Scotland, do some reparatory work, drainage, getting rid of vegetation, those kind of things. And of course, what they're doing is ticking boxes for their modules in the course modules, but they're also having the opportunity to help these big organizations to do this work. And Blawhorn Moss is a great example because they've done so much stuff and they've been involved in helping put a walkway out into the middle of the moss, such that now the local primary schools send bunches of school people, primary kids out to see and get involved in immerse themselves in what they wouldn't otherwise have been able to do. You know, they'll see dragonflies and all the other flora and fauna out there. It really is terrific. And the other big thing that whenever I go to school events, I really make a point of saying this to young people, is that these kind of opportunities are, and you mentioned it, Lorna, in a previous question or in your presentation, it's an opportunity to network with some of the people from these organisations, because if you make an impression on these kind of people, the next time a seasonal job or a permanent job comes up, it's kind of a closed or a close-knit community in this kind of area and this kind of subject area. And even if this, you know, somebody hasn't got a job coming up themselves, they'll know somebody that might do, and they chat. And if somebody has been on one of our visits with the orcs, then if they've made a good impression, we're going to get a phone call, or you guys are going to get a phone call, Lauren, and say, look, I met such and such, you know, girl with blonde hair who got stuck in, and I'd really like to have a word with her because, and these are the opportunities that are like gold dust for students to get placements, either temporary or permanent, hopefully permanent, further down the line when they graduate with us. And it really is a big opportunity.
We have a lot of students now employed with the likes of Forestry and Land Scotland, Nature Scot, all these organisations that we work very closely with. And it's because the students have been out doing practical work, or they've been doing surveys, and they've met these members of staff, and they've made a good impression. The other thing I would say about orcs is, because it is student led, you get that opportunity to see and be involved in working as a committee, applying for funding, doing all these things that you would do within a job, and you might find moving on that's what you need to do, and it gives you that experience of also, yes, you make the contacts, you get out and do the practical conservation work, but you also get involved in knowing how to actually run a group, and how to put a committee together, and how to put a funding application in, and where funding comes from, and these types of things, and come up with your own projects as a group. So it's a great range of skills with it being a student-led organisation.
Yeah, just expanding on that a little bit, Georgina is asking a question about where do most of the students end up working? What types of organisations?
Okay, so this is, as I was saying about the volunteering, this is it's quite a varied sector. So there are lots of different little avenues that you can go down in terms of where you want to work afterwards. And what I find, so I myself have been through a long time ago now, in a qualification with a different name, but the HNC, the HND, the degree and the honours. So I have been through, studied at Oatridge, and then studied at Edinburgh. So I know what it's like to go through. And what I found when I was studying was that every time we met a guest speaker or we went out to a site, that was the job I wanted to do. So it can be anything from, some people go in to work on your local nature reserve with Nature Scot or Forestry and Land, and they're a type of ranger. That's the kind of, when people think of this sector, they think, oh, I want to be a ranger, I want to be out there, outdoors, doing practical conservation work. But actually, you could be doing anything from working for ecological surveying, so consultancy work, going out and doing bat surveys and bird surveys on potential development sites like wind farm sites. You could be working in schools doing environmental education. You could move into research, and you could carry out research projects on, could be flora, fauna, could be things to do with climate change and the biodiversity loss. You could work in interpretation, so maybe something like working at Linlithgow Palace and doing a kind of interpreter guide type job. There are all sorts of types of roles that you can get involved in. So it's not always just that practical habitat management stuff. It can be education, it can be tourism, it can be consultancy. Yeah, so people go on to do all manner of different jobs within this sector.
Thank you, Lorna. Just a wee further one on that. The NC Countryside Management course, is that seen more as a feeder for the other courses, or would you be able to sort of step off at that point? And if so, what sort of roles would be possible at that level?
Okay, so yes, you could absolutely step off at that level. You don't have to go all the way through. There are different streams. Obviously, you can, if you're academic and you want to go all the way through to the degree, but if you want to come in and you're looking to get a job, you want to do the NC to get the practical skills and move on, there are absolutely opportunities for that. And one student I can think of in particular who came to do the NC actually then went on to do an apprenticeship with Forestry and Land Scotland. So he stopped at the end of his NC, achieved that, and then moved on to an apprenticeship with Forestry and Land Scotland and is now employed by them. So you absolutely can go from the NC, and again, it would be that sort of estate maintenance ranger type role, I would say, if you were leaving the NC, potentially looking for an employer that does maybe apprenticeships or trainee kind of programs. Would be a good avenue.
Lovely, thank you. Thank you. So the next one is from Olivia, who what types of wildlife would I typically get to study on the HNC and HND courses?
Okay, so we generally study tours aside, you generally look at UK native species. And the HNC is quite broad, so you're kind of looking at general species in general and more about habitats. But then as we go up to the HND, you do modules on sort of marine environments, freshwater environments, terrestrial ecology. So that's where you will then focus in. So you might look at things like bat surveys, newt surveys, badger surveys, bird surveys, these sort of kind of animal type surveys, and learn about identification and things for that. And then you'll also focus in the habitats or the ecosystems, like marine ecosystems, freshwater ecosystems, and learn about the various different species involved there.
Okay, thank you. Here's one from Andy. I think you went through the types of the trips, these fantastic trips that they go on. Are there what sort of, Andy's asking what sort of costs are involved in the field trips or in the study trips?
Okay, so for the NC level, the South Africa tour is completely funded. You do have to pay a £500 deposit, but you then get that back. In terms of the costs of the Romania trip and the Rum trip, I honestly can't tell you off the top of my head. So that's going to be a question that you might have to take note of, Graham, and we can find out in the future.
I've written it down. Yep.
That's fine.
Okay, good. Okay, well, I think I'm just looking. There's a couple of new ones just come in on the screen here to me. So Joanna is asking, can you enter at HNC level, excuse me, let me kill that phone. Can you enter at HNC level if you don't meet the qualification, the entry requirements, but are a mature student with practical experience?
Absolutely, 100%. So definitely get your application in, especially if you've got that kind of practical experience. But even if you're a mature student that doesn't have that practical experience, but you have other life experience, so skills are transferable. So don't let it put you off if you feel like you haven't got the practical experience. The point of coming on the course is to gain these skills and knowledge. So if you're a mature student, you'll have gained other life skills and transferable skills. So definitely put an application in or speak to us directly, come to an open day on the campus, and we can chat through your skills and knowledge. But I would put an application in, don't let it kind of hold you back.
Yeah, I would definitely endorse what Lorna is saying, Joanna. We're very much an organisation who try and make the courses fit the students' experience and academic requirements. I'm old enough to have done such things as O grades and hires, so that just shows you how old I am. But certainly in your application, there's nothing to stop people applying, and the big thing I always say to people is in your personal statement, which is in the application online, that's your opportunity to tell us a bit about what you've done. Young people, we say to them, you know, if you've done a Duke of Edinburgh scheme, or you've worked in somewhere where you've used people skills, customer service, that type of thing, because all of these things are important in having a rounded experience of life in general, and it's not all about a bit of paper that says I've got a higher in this or a higher in that. We have to obviously put requirements in, particularly from HNC upwards, because of the UCAS requirements and the way that everything's structured. But certainly, if you apply and ask the question, then it's up to us to engage with you, and we would certainly do that, because what we do like to have across all our courses, not just in wildlife and conservation management, is we like to have a broad range of students who can feed off each other in terms of their experience of life and their experiences in general. So having some mature students, having some in some of our subjects, for instance, it's very much there's a gender balance, which is one way than the other. Things like equine and animal care are very much female, whereas and we try our best to try and rebalance that. Engineering is another one which typically is male students of different ages, but again, we have had some very successful young ladies that have come into these kind of courses and made a success of it. So we do like to have because it means that all of the students can benefit from each other's experience. I kind of use a phrase like 2 + 2 = 5. So it's important, and I would very much recommend, Joanna, that even if you don't think you meet the requirements, apply, and then we can engage with you and see if we can make it fit. If you're, I think enthusiasm and keenness is a big part of it too, Lorna, isn't it? You know, we don't want people who are just, well, I need to go and do a course. We want people who have a passion, because our lecturers and the team here at Oatridge have a passion for what they do, and we want to work with people, whether they're young or mature, who have that same passion.
No, absolutely, 100% agree. Yeah.
Nikki has asked a question here, Lorna, which I'll answer. The question is there support for additional needs such as dyslexia? The answer, Nikki, is absolutely. We have a very supportive student support team who cover all areas. There are about 4 or 5 of them in the team. They have educational officer, they have a fees and funding officer, they have a pastoral support officers, and very much the case that they're there to support students. And what we always say to both incoming students and those who have already applied is to talk to us, because unless you talk to us, we don't know, and try and talk to us in advance of the course starting, because if you can do that, then if there are any adjustments that need to be made or support that needs to be put in, we can get that set up ahead of the course starting, so that you can hit the ground running.
Yeah, and we make all sorts of reasonable adjustments for people, and the team are wonderful. So yeah, again, don't let that be something that puts you off. There's absolutely ways around these things, and various different support adjustments that can be made.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. Well, what looks like we've come to the end, Lorna, of our questions. I'll leave the chat open for a minute or so while I pop myself back on screen, and I'll just close our session by saying, well, thank you very much, Lorna, for a presentation. Very comprehensive, informative, and very useful, I hope, for those who have attended today. Thank you all for attending, and we hope you did find it useful. Please remember, I will send everyone an email, hopefully later today or tomorrow, with a link to our recording of the event, so you can review it at your leisure, and it might it might pop up, it might inspire some further questions. So if it does, please get in touch with me and I'll happily pass them on to Lorna and the team. I also send a link to a very short survey, which takes a couple of minutes. I'd appreciate it if you would complete that for us. And here's the wee plug for good timing this year. We are running campus open days in early November, and if you like what you've heard today, or you want to take this a little bit further, I would highly recommend you coming to one of our campus open days at Oatridge. Our Wildlife Conservation Management Open Day is on the 10th of November. It's a kind of 3-hour afternoon session. Arrive at 1 o'clock, get a presentation on the subject area, and then you get a wee campus tour, but you get the opportunity to meet the lecturers and ask questions and get a flavour and a feel for the campus, I think, which is very important in my mind to make sure that you're coming to an organisation where you have similar ideas about how you want to get on. So thank you very much, everyone, again for attending. Please stay safe, have a good day, and we hope to see you at an online open day or a campus open day, or indeed on campus with us on a course. Thank you very much indeed.